Of all the launch titles for the Xbox One, Ryse is the one that really stood out from the crowd of reboots, franchises and first-person shooters, with a brutal but visually stunning reimagining of ancient Roman warfare. Turns out, everyone used to be fairly nasty to each other in those days, and British, apparently. Ryse also mixes moments of strategy and commanding your legion with epic one-on-one boss battles. But first, let's look at who we are. And it's definitely not Russell Crowe, but it definitely is. Taking on such an interesting setting should have opened up a world of possibilities. Instead, Ryse is basically split into two halves. Firstly, we're introduced to Marius, this our protagonist, and he is all the Roman soldier you could ask for. Quickly though, we are plunged into a revenge story. Now, there are essentially two source materials for making this game, the film Gladiator and actual history. The revenge story is just too close to Gladiator for it to be ignored. But then we go down a route of a mystical blonde woman giving us advice, and barbarians able to create chains that stop whole groups of battleships in the water, and stone buildings full of giant mechanical doors, and it all gets a little bit far-fetched. However, the second half of the game doesn't just accept the more fantastical route, it revels in it, and what begins as a fairly dull campaign soon turns into something genuinely gripping and satisfying. It's almost as though the game tries to convince you that this is all bedded in truth and hard research, but then accepts that it's over the top and just runs with it. It's a short campaign too, about 6 hours, so stick with it. This is helped by some awesome graphics. There are moments of detail up close, like the facial animations when characters speak, and moments of awe from a distance as you take in huge vistas and the low-setting sun shining through the trees. Then there are moments of genuine anxiety as you traverse a deep, dark forest, watched by masked barbarians in the distance. There's no denying how great this game looks, although sometimes people don't seem to be able to walk properly for some reason. Playing the game takes a while to get used to. The controls mean your big finishing moves can't fail no matter what you press, and combat becomes these intense one-on-one battles as each enemy in a group tries to attack. But once you get used to the controls and how you have to do specific things to defeat certain types of enemy, being surrounded by a group of barbarians suddenly becomes this awesome, desperate struggle. There are also tactical points where you get into the famous tortoise formation, the least intimidating name for a military maneuver, and during sieges you can make strategic decisions. You either do this by shouting at your Kinect or holding down the left bumper for an unnecessary amount of time. Both of these options are difficult and a bit annoying, but you won't beat these levels without using them. Outside of the single-player campaign, there is also the Gladiator mode, taking on waves of enemies in a changing, morphing coliseum. It's a brilliant co-op experience, especially on the harder difficulties, where your timing is absolutely essential to survival, let alone victory. You get to customize and upgrade your Gladiator, and each wave comes with its own objectives, traps, arena, and enemies. Overall, Ryse is a good game. It's not a great game, but once you get on board with where it's trying to take you and start to play it how the developers want you to play it, you might start to enjoy the experience. Look, it's not going to be a game that you cherish forever, and it does have its problems. But on the launch of the Xbox One, it's unique, and like any over-the-top action film, critics may scoff, but it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.